I walked into the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air. I needed that pick-me-up after last night's late conference call. But as I entered, I saw Patricia, my mother-in-law, standing by the sink with a frown on her face. "Michelle, why is the house always so unkempt?" Patricia snapped, her eyes narrowing as they scanned the room. "I hired a housekeeper to take care of everything," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. Patricia's disapproval had become a regular part of my mornings. Patricia scoffed. A real wife would do it herself. Before I could respond, Brian entered the kitchen, his shirt half-tucked and his tie askew. "Morning," he mumbled, barely looking up. I forced a smile. "Good morning. Coffee?" He nodded and moved past Patricia without acknowledging her. I handed him a mug. He took a sip, then glanced around, seemingly for the first time noticing the tension. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes flicking between his mother and me. "Just discussing housekeeping," Patricia replied coldly, taking a seat. I sighed. "Brian, can we talk later? I have a lot on my plate today with the business." "Sure," he said absently, already scrolling through his phone. Esme, our housekeeper, walked in, breaking the awkward silence. "Good morning, Mrs. Turner, Mr. Turner." Patricia gave her a curt nod. "Esme, you missed a spot by the window yesterday." Esme smiled politely. "I'll take care of it right away." Patricia muttered something under her breath and left the kitchen, leaving an icy atmosphere behind her. I took a deep breath, my frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. "Brian, can we have a serious conversation about this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked up from his phone, a slight frown creasing his forehead. "About what?" "Your mom's constant criticism. It's driving me crazy. I need your support here." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Michelle, she's just old-fashioned. She'll get used to things eventually." "Eventually? It's been years, Brian," I snapped. "I can't keep pretending everything's fine while she undermines me in our own home." His jaw tightened. "Look, she's my mom. You need to be more understanding." I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. "So, my feelings don't matter?" "They do," he replied, looking at his phone again. "But this isn't the time." "Fine," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "We'll talk later." The rest of the morning went by in a haze. I threw myself into work, finding solace in my growing e-commerce enterprise. Orders were coming in faster than we could fulfill them, and my team was working overtime. It was my escape, the one thing I had control over. Later that day, as I prepared dinner, the doorbell rang. It was my in-laws. Thomas gave me a polite smile, but Patricia's scowl never left her face. Dinner was a stiff affair, with Patricia dissecting every bite. "This tastes different," she commented, setting her fork down. "Michelle, did you change the recipe?" "No, Patricia, it's the same," I replied, barely managing to keep the irritation out of my voice. After dinner, Brian and I retreated to the living room. "We need to talk now," I said firmly. He sighed. "Michelle, I'm exhausted. Can we do this another time?" "No, Brian, we need to figure this out. This tension isn't sustainable." He finally looked at me, and for a moment I saw a flash of the man I'd married. Caring, attentive, but it faded quickly. "Fine," he said, "but I can't promise things will change." I nodded, feeling a mix of resolve and heartbreak. "We'll see." As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The seeds of discord had been planted, and I could only hope we could find a way to uproot them before they choked out what was left of our marriage. The next morning started with a hum of activity. I was in the midst of packing orders, the familiar rhythm of taping and labeling boxes giving me a sense of peace. Esme worked quietly in the background, tidying up the living room. Suddenly, Patricia barreled into my office. "Michelle," her voice was sharp, "the yard looks atrocious. When are you planning to do some gardening?" I barely looked up from my work. "I have a landscaper scheduled for tomorrow." "Why can't you just do it yourself?" "Patricia, I have a business to run. That's why we hire help." She huffed, crossing her arms. "Well, a good wife would manage both." I clenched my jaw, willing myself to stay calm. "I am managing both, just in a different way." Before she could respond, the front door opened, and Brian walked in earlier than usual. "Brian," Patricia called out, her tone instantly softening. "Look at this mess. Doesn't it bother you?" Brian glanced at the unassembled boxes and packing materials strewn across my office. "It's just temporary," he said dismissively. "Michelle's business is doing well." Patricia turned to me, her eyes blazing. So this is more important than your home? Your husband? Mom, please stop, Brian interrupted, sounding tired. We've talked about this. Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line. Have you? Doesn't seem like much has changed. With that, she stormed out, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Brian turned to me, exasperation evident on his face. Michelle, I need you to work with me on this. I'm trying, Brian, but she's impossible to please. He sighed, rubbing his temples. I know it's hard. Just keep trying. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Patricia's disapproval was a constant shadow. One evening, as Brian and I prepared for dinner, I hesitated before broaching a sensitive subject. Brian, are you sure your parents don't have anywhere else to stay? He looked up from the casserole dish. Michelle, they're family. We can't just ask them to leave. But it's causing so much tension. It's affecting us. He shook his head. They're not going anywhere. We just have to find a way to get along. Dinner was another tense affair. Patricia criticized everything from the flavor of the soup to the way the table was set. Thomas remained mostly silent, occasionally nodding in agreement with his wife. After dinner, as Brian and I cleaned up, I finally let my frustration show. This can't go on, Brian. We're all miserable. He turned to me, a rare anger in his eyes. What do you want me to do, Michelle? Throw them out on the street? No, but we need boundaries. Your mom can't keep attacking me in our own home. He threw the dish towel down. I'm doing the best I can, all right? Maybe if you tried harder, she'd back off. His words cut deep. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. Fine, I said quietly. I'll keep trying. The next morning, Esme was cleaning the guest bathroom when Patricia approached her. Esme, you missed the spot behind the toilet again. Esme's shoulders stiffened. I'll get it right away, Mrs. Turner. See that you do, Patricia snapped, turning on her heel and sending a cold glance my way. I clenched my fists, the urge to defend Esme strong, but I knew it would only result in more conflict. Brian's words from the night before echoed in my mind. Maybe if you tried harder, she'd back off. But a small, stubborn part of me doubted that anything I did would ever be good enough. As I tackled the day's work, I could feel the heavy weight of family tension pressing down on me. The whispers of disapproval from Patricia and the silent judgments from Thomas were suffocating. But there was no turning back. I had too much at stake to let their negativity derail me. I had to stay strong, even if it meant fighting this battle alone. Brian was getting home later and later. Each night I would sit in the living room, scrolling through my laptop while waiting for him. When he finally walked through the door, his tie loosened and his shirt wrinkled. I would try to strike up a conversation. Late again, I commented one night, not looking up from my screen. Yeah, he replied, his voice devoid of emotion. Work's been crazy. I closed my laptop and watched him head to the kitchen. He grabbed a beer from the fridge and sank into the couch opposite me. We need to talk about us, Brian. This distance between us is getting worse. He took a long sip of his beer, avoiding eye contact. I'm really tired, Michelle. Can we do this another time? This can't wait, I said, my frustration boiling over. We barely talk anymore. You're always at work or preoccupied. He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. I know, and I'm sorry, but I'm working hard to support us. Isn't that what you wanted? I wanted us to support each other, but I feel like I'm doing this alone, I said quietly. You're never around. And when I am, all we do is fight, he shot back, his tone sharp. Before the argument could escalate, Patricia's voice cut through the air. What's all the noise about? Nothing, Mom. Just a disagreement, Brian said quickly, his demeanor shifting to appease her. Patricia's eyes narrowed as she looked at me. You should be more supportive of your husband, Michelle. He's working hard for this family. I clenched my fists under the table, willing myself to stay calm. I am supportive. I just want us to be a team. Patricia huffed. Maybe if you put as much effort into your marriage as you into your business, things would be better. Brian's phone buzzed, and he glanced down at the screen, frowning. I need to step out for a moment, he mumbled, avoiding my eyes. As he left, Patricia took a seat, her gaze fixed on me. Mark my words, Michelle, if you don't start acting like a real wife, you'll lose him. I felt a pang of fear but masked it with defiance. My business is important to this family. I'm doing the best I can. Patricia crossed her arms. You're using your business as an excuse. A real wife would manage both perfectly. Her words stung, but I refused to back down. I refuse to be a doormat, Patricia. She scoffed and stood up. Then don't be surprised when Brian finds someone who appreciates him. The rest of the evening was a blur. As I lay in bed, I couldn't shake Patricia's words from my mind. The distance between Brian and me was growing, and I could feel the foundations of our marriage crumbling. But there had to be a way to fix it, to prove that I could be both a successful entrepreneur and a devoted wife. The days that followed didn't get any better. Brian's late-night absences became more frequent, and whenever we did talk, it was strained and filled with unspoken resentment. One evening, in a rare moment of solitude, I decided to confront Brian once and for all. As soon as he walked in, I didn't even give him a chance to sit. Brian, we need to talk now. He looked exhausted but nodded, sitting down at the dining table. All right, what is it? My voice was steady but firm. This can't go on. We need to fix whatever is broken between us before it's too late. He sighed and leaned back. I'm not sure if it can be fixed, Michelle. We've drifted too far apart. My heart ached at his words. But I still love you. Isn't that worth fighting for? He shook his head, looking defeated. I don't know anymore. Without another word, he stood up and walked away, leaving me sitting alone at the table, the weight of our strained relationship pressing down on me. Our foundation was cracking, and as much as I wanted to believe we could repair it, a growing sense of dread told me this was only the beginning of our downfall. I decided to treat myself to a solo brunch at our favorite cafe downtown. It had been a while since I indulged in some alone time, thanks to the relentless pressure at home. The cafe was buzzing with people, offering a comforting distraction from the growing tension in my life. I had just sat down with my latte when I heard a familiar voice. Michelle, is that you? I looked up to see Claire, my old college friend. Claire, what a surprise! She gave me a quick hug before sitting down. I haven't seen you in ages. How have you been? Busy, I said, trying to muster a smile. Work's been intense and things at home, well, let's just say it's a bit chaotic. Claire tilted her head. Want to talk about it? Before I could respond, her eyes widened. Wait, isn't that Brian over there? I followed her gaze and felt my stomach drop. Brian was across the patio, laughing and sharing a drink with a woman I didn't recognize. Who is she? Claire whispered. My eyes were glued to the scene unfolding before me. I don't know, but I intend to find out. Brian looked like he was having the time of his life, completely at ease with this stranger. My hands clenched around my coffee cup, thoughts racing. Claire placed a hand on my arm. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. The rest of the brunch was a blur. My anger and confusion kept me on edge. As soon as I got home, I dug out the number of a private investigator I knew. It was time to uncover the truth. The following days were a whirlwind of activities. I kept my routine as normal as possible, silently coordinating with the investigator behind the scenes. Brian's absences were now tinged with suspicion rather than just frustration. Each day he grew more distant, and I grew more determined. A week later, the investigator called, confirming my worst fears. Brian was having an affair with a younger woman from his office. Hearing the news spawned a mixture of rage and heartbreak in me. That evening, after Patricia and Thomas had retreated to their room, I pulled Brian aside. We need to talk, now. He looked at me with that same tired expression, but nodded. Okay, what's on your mind? I didn't waste any time. I know about your affair, Brian. I saw you with her, and I have proof. His face went pale. Michelle, let me explain. I cut him off, my voice shaking with anger. Explain. How do you explain betraying our marriage? He stammered, searching for words. It's not what you think. It's complicated. Complicated, I shouted, losing control. You lied to me, to our family. How could you do this? Patricia and Thomas appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the commotion. What's going on here? Patricia demanded. This doesn't concern you, Patricia, I snapped, my eyes never leaving Brian's. Brian held up his hands, trying to calm the situation. Michelle, please, let's talk about this privately. No, I'm done talking in private. I'm done with secrets. My voice was firm. We'll figure out what to do from here, but understand this. I'm not the problem. You've made your choices, and now you have to live with them. I walked out, each step filled with a sense of finality. That night, I barely slept. the reality of my broken marriage weighing heavily on me, but a small part of me felt relief. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The next morning, Brian tried to talk to me again, but I was resolute. I need space. If you want to fix this, you need to show me, not just tell me. He nodded, looking defeated. I understand. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear: things had to change, and I would be the one to make it happen. Another sleepless night turned into a foggy morning. I sat at the dining table, staring at the untouched breakfast in front of me. Brian came down the stairs looking worn out but determined. "Michelle, we need to talk," he began, sitting across from me. I met his gaze, my expression unreadable. "Go ahead." He took a deep breath. "I'm sorry. I know I've messed up, but we can fix this, can't we?" I shook my head. "It's not that simple, Brian. You broke my trust. Trust is the foundation of any relationship." "But I love you," he insisted, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "Love isn't enough. Actions speak louder than words, and your actions have shown where your priorities lie." Just then, Patricia walked in, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "We're discussing our marriage, Patricia," I said. "It doesn't concern you." "It most certainly does," Patricia snapped. "Everything about this family concerns me." My patience was wearing thin. "Fine, then understand this. Brian has been unfaithful." Patricia's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger. "How dare you accuse my son of such a thing?" "I have proof," I stated calmly, watching Brian's face turn pale again. Brian rose from his seat, his voice trembling. "Mom, this is between Michelle and me." Patricia ignored him, turning to me with fury. "You're lying. You're just trying to break this family apart. You've never been good enough for Brian." I stood up, the chair scraping loudly on the floor. "I've always respected you and Thomas, even when you made it hard, but now I won't stand here and take this." Brian tried to step between us. "Enough, both of you. This isn't helping." Patricia pointed a finger at me. "You will regret treating my son this way. You're the problem here, not him." I felt my resolve harden. "Patricia, your blind defense of Brian is exactly why we're in this mess. He needs to take responsibility, and you need to let us handle this." With that, I turned and left the room, the heavy weight of the confrontation pressing down on me. Upstairs, I packed a small suitcase, throwing in essentials. Brian followed me, desperation in his voice. "Michelle, please don't go. We can work this out." I zipped my bag and looked at him, feeling a pang of sadness. "I need some space. Staying here won't fix anything." "Where will you go?" he asked, his eyes pleading. "I'll find a place. I have friends who can help." He stood there, defeated. "I never wanted this." "Neither did I," said softly, "but sometimes stepping away is the only way to save what's left." I moved past him and made my way down the stairs. Patricia was waiting, her eyes burning with resentment. "Leaving won't fix anything," she hissed. "It's a start," I replied, not looking back. As I walked out into the crisp morning air, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I had to reclaim my peace and rebuild my life from the ground up. I drove to Claire's house, grateful for her support during this chaotic time. She greeted me with a warm hug. "You did the right thing, Michelle. Now you can start healing." "Thanks, Claire," I said, my voice cracking slightly. That night, as I lay in Claire's guest room, I stared at the ceiling, trying to piece together what had happened. My marriage, my life, everything felt like it was up in the air. But I knew one thing for sure: I had taken the first step toward taking control of my own destiny. In the silence, a new kind of resolve settled over me. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to thrive. The days after I moved in with Claire were a whirlwind of emotions. I threw myself into my work even more, determined to make my e-commerce business thrive. It was my escape, my sanctuary. One afternoon, Claire found me surrounded by shipping boxes. "Michelle, you need a break. How about we grab some lunch?" I hesitated, but then nodded. Yeah, I could use a change of scenery. We headed to a nearby bistro, and as we sat by the window, the sunlight streaming in felt almost therapeutic. Claire's phone buzzed and she glanced at it, her expression shifting. "Michelle, have you heard from Brian?" I shook my head. "No, and I don't plan on reaching out. Why?" She bit her lip. "Word is going around that his job isn't going well." My heart tightened. "What do you mean?" "Apparently his performance at work has been slipping. They're talking about demotion." I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of emotions. That's unfortunate, but I can't let it distract me. Claire nodded. Of course, it's just karma, isn't it? We finished our lunch, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I couldn't control what was happening to Brian, but I could control how I moved forward. Back at Claire's, I spent the evening strategizing for my business. Orders were pouring in, and my efforts were paying off. It felt good to have something positive to focus on amid the chaos. A week later, I got a call from an unknown number. Hesitant, I answered. Hello? Michelle, it's Brian. I felt a surge of mixed feelings. Brian, what is it? I need to talk to you. Can we meet? Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a cafe, the same one where I'd first seen him with the other woman. He looked disheveled, a shadow of his former self. Michelle, I'm sorry, he began, his voice cracking. Things have gotten worse. I've been demoted, and Patricia's spending is out of control. We're facing serious financial strain. I listened, my face showing no emotion. And what do you expect me to do about it? He looked desperate. I thought maybe we could work things out, and you could help us. I need you. I almost laughed at the irony. You kicked me out. Now you want my help? It's not like that. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right, he pleaded. Patricia and I can't manage without you. I leaned back, shaking my head. Brian, you made your choices. You chose her over me. Now you have to deal with the consequences. His eyes filled with tears. Please, Michelle, for old time's sake. I stood up, feeling a wave of liberation. You're on your own, Brian. I'm done cleaning up your mess. As I walked out, I felt a newfound sense of power. I wouldn't let him or anyone else drag me down again. Over the next few months, my business flourished. I hired more staff, expanded my product range, and saw profits soar. Each success was a stepping stone away from the pain Brian and his family had caused. One evening, as I was finalizing some orders, Claire walked in with a newspaper. You need to see this. The headline read, Turner family faces eviction amid financial crisis. I skimmed the article, seeing details about Brian's demotion and Patricia's compulsive spending leading them to near bankruptcy. A part of me felt a pang of pity, but it was overshadowed by the satisfaction of seeing karma play out. Later, I received another call from Brian. Michelle, we need you. We've lost everything without you. His voice was broken, filled with regret. I took a deep breath. You made your bed, now lie in it. Leave before I call the cops. He stammered. Michelle, please. I hung up, feeling a sense of closure. I was finally free from their toxic influence. This was my time to thrive, and nothing would hold me back. I had just finished a productive meeting with my new team when my phone buzzed. It was an incoming call from Brian. I let it ring. After everything, I had no desire to hear his pleas again. The voicemail alert pinged immediately after. I couldn't resist listening, dreading another round of begging. Instead, I heard Patricia's voice, fraught with desperation. Michelle, this is Patricia. We need to talk. Please call me back. I deleted the message without hesitation. I wasn't about to let them drag me back into their drama. Later that day, as I was packing up to leave, Claire called out to me from the other room. Michelle, you need to see this, she said, her voice tense. I walked over and saw her holding a letter. My name was on the envelope, written in Brian's unmistakable handwriting. It was under the door, Claire explained. I opened it reluctantly. The letter was long, filled with pleas for financial help and apologies from both Brian and Patricia. It ended with a stark admission. They were days from eviction and had nowhere else to turn. Tossing the letter into the trash, I felt a mix of anger and satisfaction. They were reaping the consequences of their actions, just as I was reaping the benefits of my hard work. That evening, I was unwinding with a glass of wine when the doorbell rang. Claire answered it, and I could hear raised voices from the hallway. Curiosity piqued, I walked over to see Brian and Patricia standing at the doorstep. Michelle, we need to talk, Brian said urgently. No, I replied firmly. We have nothing to discuss. Patricia stepped forward, looking far older and more haggard than I remembered. Please, Michelle, we're begging you. We have nowhere else to go. Seeing her in that state stirred something in me, but I quickly suppressed it. You chose this path. I won't save you from its consequences. Brian's face crumpled. Michelle, for the love of everything we had, just help us this once. Claire stepped in, her presence a comforting wall between me and them. You need to leave. Michelle doesn't owe you anything. Brian reached out a hand. Please, Michelle, this isn't just about us. Think of the memories, the good times. I shook my head. Those memories have been tainted by your betrayal. You're not my responsibility anymore. Patricia's composure broke. We'll be homeless. Is that what you want? It's not what I want, I said quietly, but it's what you deserve. My help comes at the cost of my peace, and that's too high a price. Brian's shoulders slumped. I understand. We'll go. As they turned to leave, I called out, Brian, wait. He turned back, hope flickering in his eyes. I hope this teaches you something. Life is about choices, and you made yours. Now live with the consequences. With a final nod, they walked away. The door closed and the silence was deafening. Claire put a comforting hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I know, I replied, feeling a strange sense of liberation. They needed to hear that. The following week saw my business continue to grow, and for the first time in a long while I felt genuinely happy. My decisions were my own, untainted by the toxic influences of Brian and Patricia. One evening as Claire and I sat down for dinner, she raised her glass. To new beginnings and leaving the past behind. We clinked glasses, and I smiled. To never giving up and moving forward. With Brian and Patricia out of my life, I could finally focus on the future. They had made their bed, and now they were lying in it. And for the first time, peace felt like a tangible reality. In the end, I realized something powerful. Revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about reclaiming my own happiness, and in that, I'd succeeded beyond measure. The weeks turned into months, and life steadily moved forward. My business was not only surviving but thriving in ways I'd never imagined. I hired more people, launched new products, and expanded into different markets. It felt like a dream. One morning, I sat in my sunlit office, sipping coffee and reviewing sales reports. Claire walked in, a grin on her face. Michelle, guess what? We just hit a milestone in revenue. You're absolutely killing it. A genuine smile spread across my face. That's amazing news, Claire. Let's set up a team celebration. Already planned, she said with a wink. By the way, have you thought about taking some time off? You deserve it. I pondered her suggestion for a moment. You know, I think I will. Later that week, I found myself packing for a weekend getaway. For the first time in ages, I felt light, almost carefree. Before leaving, Claire hugged me, her support always unwavering. Enjoy yourself, Michelle. You've earned this. The cabin I rented was secluded and peaceful, surrounded by towering trees and a babbling brook. As I settled in, I felt a deep sense of tranquility. The past few months had been a whirlwind, but now I could finally breathe. On the second day, while exploring a hiking trail, I bumped into an old acquaintance from college, David. Michelle, is that you? He asked, his eyes wide with surprise. David, what a small world, I replied, genuinely happy to see a familiar face. We caught up over coffee at a quaint nearby cafe. He shared stories about his own entrepreneurial journey, and I filled him in on what had been happening in my life. After a while, he leaned in, his voice softening. I heard about you and Brian. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I shrugged, feeling a strange calm. It's in the past, David. I'm focused on the future now, he smiled. That's the spirit. Life's too short to dwell on what's gone wrong. As the weekend drew to a close, I felt rejuvenated and inspired. The brief rekindling of an old friendship reminded me that I wasn't alone, that there were people who cared about me and my success. Returning to work, I threw myself back into the hustle, more determined than ever. One evening, while Claire and I were discussing a potential business partnership, she asked, Have you talked to Brian or his family lately? I shook my head. No, and I have no reason to. Good, she said firmly. They're not worth your time or effort. I agreed, feeling a sense of closure. I realized now that revenge wasn't a lingering desire to see them suffer, but rather my own victory in finding happiness and success despite their attempts to bring me down. A few weeks later, I attended a networking event. While mingling, I spotted Emily, the woman Brian had an affair with. She approached me hesitantly. Michelle, can we talk? I considered walking away but decided against it. What is it? Tears welled up in her eyes. I'm so sorry for everything. Brian and it was a huge mistake. I looked at her, feeling only pity. Emily, your apology is too late. I've moved on. She nodded, her regret palpable. I understand. I just needed to say it. As she walked away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Confronting the person who had contributed to my pain and remaining unshaken was empowering. The night went on, and I connected with several potential business partners. It felt like the universe was rewarding me for pushing through the challenges. Brian and his family were now a distant memory, fading into the backdrop of my thriving life. Back at home, I sat with Claire over a glass of wine. We talked about future plans, possible expansions, and even personal dreams. To new beginnings, she toasted. I clinked my glass with hers, feeling a warmth spread through me. To moving forward. In that moment, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, I was ready. I had faced the storm and emerged stronger. Now it was time to embrace the sunshine and let the past dissolve into a lesson learned.